Hi and welcome to Stella's Mezza. I hope you're doing good wherever you are in the world. And I'm coming to you today with a recipe for a sweet potato cheesecake. And I know the holidays are right around the corner and I'm just wondering what's on your dessert table. Well, I'll have a few videos for you, actually lots, because dessert is one of my favorite things, with lots of different desserts that you can serve up during this holiday season. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make a sweet potato cheesecake with a meringue topping. Now this is a different kind of dessert. That's just a twist to the sweet potato pie, but just more exciting, and when you bring it out the table, people are going to be like ooh and ah. So I'm going to show you the ingredients. Alright, now this pie comes in three parts. They have the base, which is the base where you're going to put the actual sweet potatoes. We have the filling, which is the sweet potatoes mixed with other ingredients, and then we have the topping, the meringue topping. So I'm going to show you what you need for your crust. So over here I have some graham cracker crust, and I have some sugar, and I also have some melted butter. Okay, now this is what will go into the crust, and you're looking to make something that looks like this. Okay, and I'll show you in a minute exactly how to do this. Now for the filling, you'll need a sweet potato that's been baked and then pureed in the blender. You want to add a little bit of milk into the blender just to help it along the process. You will need some room temperature cream cheese, which is what I have in here, and some brown sugar. Alright, and you also need some eggs, and you need some pure vanilla extract. Make sure you use a real thing, because that just enhances whatever it is you're making. Alright, and then for the meringue topping, you will need egg whites. Okay, we're not going to use the actual eggs, we're just going to use the egg whites. You can save the egg yolks to make creme brulee, and I'll also do a video for that, so you'll see how to use that. And some pure honey, or you can use agave nectar. And then you can either use cornstarch, or in other parts of the world it's called corn flour, or you can use meringue powder. Now this helps stabilize your meringue. You can, the cornstarch, the meringue powder, or the corn flour helps stabilize your meringue. And then you also need some spices, and these spices are for the filling. I have here some cinnamon, I have here some cardamom, I have here a pinch of salt, and I have here a whole nutmeg that I'm going to zest half of, okay, into the filling. And then to finish it up, you can either broil the meringue once you're done putting it over your pie, or you can use this. Now this is my favorite kitchen tool. It's a kitchen torch, and it uses butane fuel, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So I'm going to start putting these things away, and then we'll come back and I show you how to make the crust. We'll see you now. This is a crust into which you'll be pouring your filling, okay? And I'm about to show you how to make this. Now what you'll need is a springform pan. You see this? It has that clasp there that releases once you're done cooking. You can just push your hand through and you lift out your cheesecake, and this is what typically is used to cook a cheesecake. Now you need a 9-inch springform pan. What I showed you is a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to make another one dirty. I just wanted you to see what it looks like. So over here I have my graham cracker crust, and I'm mixing that with the sugar that I had in there. Now if you live in a country where they don't have the graham cracker crust, you can use digestive biscuits. I know in Kenya we do have those. They're similar in texture to this graham cracker crust. Now you would just want to mix that sugar well into the crust, and then this is some butter that I melted and let cool down a little, and I'm just going to pour it into that the crust and the sugar mixture. Okay. And then we're just going to use a fork to fluff it around. You want it to look like sand, like if you go to the beach and the water just come up over the sand, that's the way it should look. You're going to mix this up nicely until everything's well combined, there's no dry crumbs in there. And then you're going to take that mixture and you will close back up your springform pan. You're going to put that into the pan. You're just going to kind of put it in an even layer and press it with your hand. Press it down, or you can use the flat back of a glass, and then just make sure it's nicely flat, and some of it will come up over the edges, like you can see in our finished pie crust over here. Now what I did after I put this the crumbs into the springform pan, I went ahead and put it in the refrigerator. I let it chill for an hour, And then I preheated my oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I went ahead and let it sit in there for 8 to 10 minutes. That way, when you cut it up, there's not going to be crumbs everywhere, okay? Or it will not look soggy. If you put the crust in the springform pan and put your pie filling on there without ever having chilled the crumbs, it's going to fall apart or it's going to look soggy. You do not want that. So once you've gone ahead and baked, dry, like blind baked, which is what it is. You don't put anything in there. You just put your crust in the oven. You blind baked it. Let it cool on like a cooling rack for like 8 minutes. And then you want to take some aluminum foil. Make sure you use a heavy duty aluminum foil and you cover the bottom of your pan nicely. You see that? Make sure you cover it well, and then just don't let the aluminum foil like stick in because it's going to touch on your filling. You don't want it to ruin the appearance of your cheesecake. And then the reason why we're covering with foil is because we're going to put this into a baking pan, like a roasting pan, because we'll need to fill the roasting pan with enough water to cover half of this container. As you can see, it comes apart, right? So if you put water in the baking pan, and you don't put aluminum foil, the water is going to seep into the spaces in between. So you want to cover it with aluminum foil for that particular reason. And on my stove, I have my baking pan that I used to do my turkeys and roasts, and I have some water heating up. I find it easier to place the cheesecakes into the pan after I've already put my filling, as opposed to trying to pour some water into the baking pan once I have my pie in there, because sometimes the water will splatter up into your pie. So I have that heating, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. So I'll be back so we can keep going. I'll show you how to make the filling. We'll be back in a minute. And in my stand mixer that I have here, that brown sugar and softened cream cheese that I showed you earlier, I went ahead and creamed it for around 2 minutes. You can see it's nice and smooth. Now I'm going to turn my mixer back on, and then I'm going to add the sweet potato puree that we had. Now you want to turn your speed to medium. Okay. And you slowly add in your sweet potato puree. Now making this does make a mess, so don't worry. Make some good food and clean up later. I'm going to add everything in there. Now, as always, for the complete list of ingredients, the measurements, and the instructions for making this recipe, please log on to my blog. It's www.stellasmezza.blogspot.com. Now I'm going to stop the mixer for a second and just scrape the sides of the bowl so everything is well combined. Let me make sure everything's nicely mixed in there. Told you it makes a mess, but that's all good. I'm going to start it up again on medium. Right, now to that you want to add the spices. Remember the cinnamon, the cardamom, the salt, and the nutmeg that I showed you. I went ahead and grated that nutmeg, and I'm going to slowly add it into the mixture here in our bowl. And I wish you could smell it. It smells so good, very festive. It reminds me of Christmas, or very nice smell in the house. And I haven't been cooked yet, so it only gets better. Right, and you want to add the pure vanilla extract, around a tablespoon. Told you it makes a mess. A little bit more. There you go. Then let that mix a little bit, and then you add your eggs in to the bowl. You try and add them one egg at a time. That's why I have something that's sprouted, but sometimes it does not work that way. They fall in pairs, so start slowly adding it in. Come on, there you go. Alright, I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll be right back to show you what the finished product looks like once it's all mixed. Our filling's done, and it's nice and creamy, and it smells amazing. So this is what it should look like. Make sure there's no white streaks, alright? And to make sure that there's no white streaks, the best thing to do is to make sure that your cream cheese is at room temperature before you start making this recipe. So let it sit out on the counter for like 30 minutes. It'll get nice and soft. It'll be easier to mix. And then I'm going to show you how we fill our crust. So over here we have our prepared crust that's already been baked, and then we have the pan covered in heavy duty aluminum foil. Okay, so I'm just going to gently pour that in there. then we're going to smooth the top off. And remember, your oven's been preheating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 180 degrees Celsius. So you want to bake this, you want to place it in a baking pan, and I'll show you that, that has water that goes up until halfway up the pan, this springform pan. And then you want to put it in the oven, the center rack of the oven, let it bake for 45 minutes to an hour, until when you pull it out, the center does not jiggle, or not too much at least. And that's when you'll know your cheesecake is nice and done. And you're probably wondering why the water in the pan instead of just putting it straight into the oven. Well, that water helps your cheesecake cook evenly, right? And then it also it makes that steam in the oven where it'll help your cheesecake cook evenly, and then your cheesecake will not have cracks up over the top. But then that's very important if you're making cheesecakes that have no topping. But for this case, if you are making a cheesecake that has a covering on top of it, in which case we'll be putting meringue topping on top of it, it's not such a big deal or a deal breaker, but I just like to make sure everything looks perfect. That's a flaw of mine, so that's why I'm putting it in the pan. All right, so I'll take you over to my stove and show you what I was talking about with the water in my baking pan. I believe I call this a baking pan, and it's not. It's a roasting pan. This is what I used to make my roast, my roasted vegetables, my turkey, everything. It's deep and it has high walls, as you can see, and I put the water. I have both eyes sitting on top of my stove top, and there's an eye here and an eye here to heat up the water. All right, so I'm gonna put this in the oven first, and then I'm gonna gently sit in my cheesecake. Try not to splash. And the reason I do this is because if I put the cheesecake into the roasting pan and then put it in the oven and then try and pour water, you're supposed to put hot water into the roasting pan, sometimes it'll splatter and go in my cheesecake. That annoys out of me. So I'm just going to do it this way. So I'm going to put it in this oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes to 1 hour, until the center does not jiggle or not jiggle too much. So I'll see you back and I'll show you how to make the meringue. Alright, now our cheesecake is in the oven baking, and what we do is while it's baking, we start making the meringue topping, because that should go onto the cheesecake immediately after it comes out the oven, or actually when it's still hot. That way the heat from the cheesecake cooks the bottom of the meringue that's touching over top of the cheesecake. So over here I have a little bit of water, about 2 inches of water that I have on medium low on a simmer, and I have here our 4 egg whites. All right, now we're going to make the meringue, so I'm going to start adding the other ingredients. Over here I have some meringue powder. Now this can be used in place of egg whites in a recipe. However, I am using this to stabilize my meringue topping. That way it doesn't weep over my pie, like over my cheesecake. As sometimes you can put meringue over either a pie or a cheesecake, and you start seeing water in whatever you put it over. So we're trying to stop that by adding the meringue. So I'm just going to directly place it into the container. Now make sure whatever container you have is clean, no grease on it at all, or your egg whites will not froth up the way they should or beat up into stiff bits. Also make sure that your eggs are at room temperature. All right, leave them at room temperature for around 30 or 40 minutes. That way they beat up nicely. So we added the meringue. I'm going to add a pinch of salt in there. All right, and then I'm going to add some sugar. Now remember again to check out my blog for all the ingredients used in this recipe and all the measurements. Again, it's www.stellasmezza.blogspot.com. Now over here I have some pure honey. I'm using clover honey, and I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to start whisking, and I'll keep whisking until the mixture feels warm to the touch, because it's kind of cooking. We're kind of cooking it because you don't want to have like just raw egg whites in your cheesecake. So I'm going to just keep doing this whisking, and then to know that it's ready, I'm going to dip my finger, my clean finger, in there, touch my wrist here. If it feels a little bit warm, slightly warm, like the temperature at which if you have kids, you know, when you have babies, when you try and test the temperature for the milk on your wrist to make sure it's not too hot for the baby. If it feels like you can feel the warmth on it, but it's not burning you, that's the right temperature. We're going to take it out. We're going to put it into the bowl, a clean, grease-free bowl of my stand mixer, or if you're using a hand mixer, put it into a clean, grease-free bowl, and then we're going to whisk it up until it forms nice, stiff mix, but it's not dry. You don't want to mix it up too hard until it looks like foam, like when you're washing clothes with detergent and there's foam flying around. You don't want it to get to that point. But I'll come back and show you what it looks like once it has stiff mix on it, and then we're going to put it on our cheesecake, and then we're going to torch it up a little bit, burn some stuff up, put some heat up in this kitchen in a little bit. So I'll see you in a little bit. Ooh, don't forget to add your vanilla into the meringue topping. Back, and our cheesecake is done. I just got it out the oven and let it sit in that roasting pan that had the water in it. Let it sit there for like 10 minutes. So you want it warm but not too hot. Let it cool down for a little bit in there. And then I also finished whipping up our egg whites, or meringue. And first I let it, like you saw me stirring it on the stove over a pan with some hot water that was simmering. And I went ahead and did that till it was nice and warm. And then once it was all frothy, I went and put it in the mixing bowl of my stand mixer, and I beat it, I whisked it for, you want to put this, a whisk attachment. I whisked it for around 8 to 10 minutes, and there you have it, right? That's what it should look like. You see that? Soft peaks. And if you lift the bowl upside down, it should not fall out, okay? I could do this, and it's not pouring out. See that? Okay, so now you're ready. You want to be careful not to hit the pan too much. You don't want to let some of that air go, because it's air that's making it all fluffy like a cloud. So I'm going to start putting this over top of our cheesecake. Now we're going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to start spooning it in. Spooning the meringue on over top of our mixture here, and then I'm going to use my spatula, which is this right here, to kind of form whips or wisps, whatever you want to call it, up over it, okay? We're just going to put up here. And if for some reason, or whatever reason, the cheesecake appears to have some moisture over top of it, just use a clean paper towel to pat it dry. You don't want the moisture affecting the texture of your meringue up top. Now this came, the eggs, when I was whisking them over the stove, it actually became hot because I don't want to eat raw eggs. Remember, it's just egg, it's egg whites. You don't want raw egg whites. And I also came back and reminded you to add your vanilla, you know, so there's no smell or taste of raw eggs on it. Alright, so I'm just going to spread this a little. You want to spread it all the way to the edges, okay? And now it depends on where you live also, the quality of meringue that you're going to have. If you live in a humid area or it's a humid day where you live, try not to do this because it will not form like peaks the way you want it to. Now what we've learned today is if you want nice peaks on your meringue, make sure your eggs are at room temperature before you start. And also make sure you whisk it good, and make sure that the bowl you use to whisk it in does not have any kind of grease on it, or it will not turn out the way you want it to. You see what I'm doing? I'm just using the back of a spoon to kind of make peaks. Like just pull them up, and you'll see why this is important when I light up that torch. Okay, you just dip it in and pull it up, dip it in, pull it up. We're gonna burn it up in here. I don't mean to literally set your cheesecake on fire, but we're going to make it nicely brown and beautiful, nice to look at. All right, let me keep doing this till it looks the way I want it to look, and then I'll be right back to light that torch and show you what's going to happen. All right, now I'm back and I have my kitchen torch on, and I'm just going to start. You can adjust these things to make the heat, the flame come out to the temperature you want it. See what I'm doing? I'm just lightly getting those edges. Now this, where those wisps that I was making, that's where it's important. It's going to come up beautifully. And if your torch starts getting too strong, you can turn it off and let it cool down a little bit, then keep going. See that? Every time I use this thing, I feel like Superwoman. Love it. Love it. There you go. And you want to completely burn it. You just want to put little bits of brown in there. Alright. Let me finish doing this, and I'll come back and show you what the cut item looks like once it's plated, okay? See you back in a little bit. We're back. I went ahead and finished wisping up and browning the tops of our cheesecake, sweet potato cheesecake. So I want you to move down here and take a look at what we're working with. You see that? Now you see why it was important that we get the wisps, because it adds a nice design to the cheesecake. And I went ahead and used this, which is my kitchen torch, and that's what I got to achieve those little brown wisps. And now I took a slice out of it and I'm going to show it to you. And then my best favorite part of the show is when I actually get to taste it. So there you look at it. The house smells amazing. Okay, so I'm going to take a bite out of it. Oh, I cannot wait. I'm salivating. Oh. Oh, sweet potato pie? What? Why? This is where it's at. It's so good. See, the crust is still nice and crumbly. We cooked it. I gotta take it. I'm sorry. I wouldn't even pretend. It's just so good. Oh. I actually hear the angels sing. It's so good. Ooh, you gotta try this. Thanksgiving's coming up. Christmas coming up. New Year's coming up. So I hope you get to give this recipe a try. And I hope you join me next time as I take your taste buds on another culinary safari. Thank you for joining me and welcome to Stella's Meza.